Hey, this is Lou Mangello from WDW Radio, and you're listening to the Fiveish Fangirls podcast. Let's do this.
The tangents as we continue all the way to episode 433 of the Fiveish Fangirls podcast. Bless us, O Lord, for thy gifts which we are about to receive. And yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of no food, I will fear no hunger. We want you to give us this day our daily bread. And in the republic for which it stands, and by the power invested in me, I pronounce us ready to eat. Amen. Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the Fiveish Fangirls podcast. So glad you joined us. Let's start off like a direct from the virtual table and see who's joined us this week.
This is Brittany in Belvedere.
This is Chrissy in Salt Lake City.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. Hello, everyone.
Hi, everybody. How's September treating everybody? Are we good? Is it busy?
Jury's out.
Okay. Well, the weather has started to cool off somewhat, so
that is true. I have
Yeah.
had my windows wide open all day. It has been fabulous. Although I had to make a comment to my coworkers, like, this is totally a first world living in a somewhat urban area problem, that having all my windows open, I realized just how noisy it is outside.
Yep, that can happen.
There's all sorts of crap happening outside. Power equipment and animals and all sorts of stuff. I'm like, oh, this was all
Big
muffled
trucks
before when I had the windows
going by.
closed. Yeah.
Yep, lots going on. I'm just glad that it cooled off this weekend a bit, because we had the library had ToshoCon, which is our teen anime convention that Jared and I were involved in, and part of it took place outside, especially the Pokemon Go raids that I was doing, and that was a lot of fun. And yeah, then they have the amphitheater that a lot of the stuff was going on. They have like food trucks and the karaoke and just all kinds of fun. It was chaos, a handful of mishaps that kind of were like, oh, oops. But overall, it was a good time, and I didn't get very many pictures because I was running around like my hair was on fire for most of the weekend, and I'm still tired, but it was just good. It was a good time. I'll say that.
That's good. Yeah, let's do the news. Not a whole lot. Broken record. That's going to be the case while everybody is on strike. There's just nothing happening. So
lots of meetings happening, and not a whole lot of much else. Although I guess the last one they canceled because people were having a pout fit. I was listening to a YouTube video talking about giving updates on it, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, someday somebody's gonna make a movie of this, and it is just gonna be the most entertaining thing in the world.
Well, the last time that the WGA went on strike, or was it the SAG, whichever group, that strike lasted for 5 months. So we, they're able to hold out for a while.
That must have been the actors, because I think the WGA back in the 2007 they were done by this point. Their strike was over.
Yeah,
for how
so
long
must have been
doing it.
SAG
Yeah,
then. So, but they're willing to hold out for as long as it takes. So, but in the meantime, we are getting some new stuff because stuff was finished before this started. So that being said, Loki season 2, when it starts in a few weeks, October 5th. That's crazy to think. It is going to be nighttime drops on your Disney Plus. So episodes are going to drop at 9 p.m. Eastern time on Disney Plus. So they're trying to go the pseudo primetime route. I guess so.
Yes.
People can come home. People can come home from work and be like, "Yay!" Instead of it dropping in the morning and then being like, "Well, I have to go to work." So,
Aren't they doing that with
watch it.
Seeing as Disney as seems to be trying to divest itself of ABC and its linear TV, maybe streaming is going to be what their primetime offering is going to be between.
Well, this is something that they've been trying with Ahsoka, and I guess it's working well enough that they're like, "Yeah, we're gonna do this for Loki as well." So for those of you that work day jobs, just know that you're gonna have Tom Hiddleston's magic pants waiting for you when you get home, which is not necessarily a bad thing. So, depending on how your day at work goes. It may just be the evening pickup you need.
Don't we all?
Yeah. So there is that, and that's really kind of it. We do have a new episode of Gold Standard in the feeds for you all. So we did the 2012 Ben Affleck directed Best Picture winner Argo. So, quite interesting history lesson for
it's
U.S. and Middle Eastern relations in the late 70s, early 80s.
Oh, jeez. That was a cluster if ever there was one.
Yep.
You students of history, even very recent history, jeez. Anyway, but yeah, it kind of floors me that you guys are into, you're getting up to where it's like not even 10 years ago.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah. But we have discussed what we are going to do once we are caught up, and we have a plan. And you're just gonna have to wait and find out what that plan is.
Ooh.
Okay.
Next year. So.
Yes. I'm doing the math. Hang on a
minute. Yeah. At the moment, the next Oscar ceremony is scheduled for March. Of course, that is subject to change again based on the strikes. So,
well, they may just post the list somewhere and say, "Yep, that was it."
Yeah. Well, and if release dates are changing, stuff that may have potentially been eligible may not be now. So, because it won't get released in time.
Well, because I counted it up roughly, because you guys do it every other week, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So just roughly, I think you'll be up to 2020. You'll be able to review the winner in March, the winner of this upcoming one. So it's like almost perfect timing. Now, that was just a rough count stuff.
Yep.
On my phone, so I don't know the ins and outs of your scheduling.
You're about right. So
okay,
that's all in pencil, of course.
Kind of interesting how that worked out, because I don't know. I'll put it up to Nick's superior podcast planning.
Yeah,
I'm sure he had this figured out, or just trusted to luck.
Yeah.
But I find that interesting. It's like, hey, you'll be caught up, and then you'll be able to do the newest one theoretically.
Mm-hmm.
So
it is kind of amusing. Podcast serendipity. It happens all the time.
That is no small feat, my friends.
Mm-hmm.
So yay for Gold Standard for you're almost there.
Yep. So that is in the feeds for y'all. And now we got some feedback. Of course, if we talk about anything Disney related, Shalane is on it. So Shalane says, first movie based on a Disney park ride you girls have talked about, but I'm sure won't be the last. Anyway, I love Pirates of the Caribbean franchise and the ride. Ranking my favorite ones are Curse of the Black Pearl, Dead Man Tells No Tales, At World End, Dead Man's Chest, and On Stranger Tides. It would have been better if they would have let it end on the third one, but glad they came back with the
Dead Men
Tell No Tales.
Yeah. Money, dear boy.
Yes.
You think they were gonna close the book on a cash cow like that?
Yeah, especially when they're like, wait, we can get Penelope Cruz and Javier Bardem in the same movie? Absolutely. Sign us up. When do we start? Says, I think the only character I love in the franchise is Mr. Gibbs. It's also surprised that the guy who played Grumpy on Once Upon a Time was the medium short guy.
Yes.
Anyway,
if you followed him on Twitter, he often talked about Pirates and Once Upon a Time at the same time.
Yep. I do like Mr. Gibbs. I got to have a quick chat with him at a con, and that was before the 5th movie was due to come out, and I was like, are we going to see Mr. Gibbs again? He's like, yep. I'm like, sweet.
Awesome.
Well, by then it was pretty much a foregone conclusion. He really wasn't spoiling me anything. So
yeah. Mr. Gibbs, the only sane man in that crew.
Yeah, really. So anyway, Pirates of the Caribbean isn't the first Disney movie based on a Disney attraction. In 1997, on The Wonderful World of Disney, there's a movie based on the Tower of Terror called Tower of Terror with Steven Guttenberg and Kirsten Dunst in it.
I remember that.
I vaguely remember that.
I remember watching it. Do I remember the plot? Not really, but I remember it was heavily advertised on Disney Channel, even though it was going to be on ABC. But it was like, everyone go watch this thing, and I remember watching it, and I don't really remember the plot. I mean, I remember the plot of the actual ride more than I remember the plot of the movie. But that's because the ride is memorable. This movie was not.
Yep.
Anyway, points for trying.
Says there's going to be a remake. It's going to be directed by Taika Waititi, and Scarlett Johansson is producing it. Now that we jump, yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought Disney and ScarJo were on the outs, but maybe they send her a fruit basket in the things.
Maybe. Well, I mean, she can produce, because then that just means she gets money. Doesn't mean she's got to be in it.
That is true enough. All right, fair enough. Carry on.
Now that we've done Pirates, I will wait patiently for other movies based on Disney parks for you girls to talk about, like Jungle Cruise and The Haunted Mansion, both 2003 and 2023 versions, plus The Country Bears. What is wrong with The Country Bears movie? It's a cute movie.
It's cute. It's also, I don't know,
bonkers.
A little bonkers. I really don't know. Well, okay. Jerry Bruckheimer produced the Pirates. He didn't produce it. Now I'm doubting myself. It definitely depends on who's in charge and who's doing what, because obviously the Pirates movie could have been a complete disaster, or just not as it could have like gone nowhere like those other ride to movie things went. But out of all of them, that was the one that did the best, and the others are just kind of like, they were there. It was fine.
I think it really comes down to, are they taking just like the vibe of the attraction and using that as like, the basis of like, your production design and all that, because that's what they do with Pirates. And then there's a little Easter eggs that are nice references to the attraction. But if you've never even ridden the attraction, it doesn't matter because they're still very entertaining and it looks really cool. It's really great characters and costumes and the soundtrack and all that stuff. But then some of them, they try to make them a bit too literal, like taking the actual attraction and trying to turn it into a film.
Yeah.
And that doesn't quite work for some of them. So.
Yeah. Well, and also now that I think about it, is Pirates I mean, like we said, it's 20 years old. More than.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, it is 20 years old.
Yep.
And that movie, it holds up. It is one of those movies that's like, it could have been released last week. And the Haunted Mansion, the Eddie Murphy Haunted Mansion, and the Country Bears movie are very much, they're time capsules. They are early 2000, late 90s, early 2000s movies, and it shows. Not that that's a bad thing necessarily, but it's not something you're going to go back to and like, oh, this is like such a timeless movie. And I mean, because the attractions, they've been around for years and years and years and years, and people still go to them and they love them and all of that. But the movies are very dated. But Pirates is not. So I think that's why that one has staying power. And those other ones, it's like, oh, Eddie Murphy is what was he? He wasn't a realtor, was he? I don't even remember. I just remember crazy Eddie Murphy antics and not much else.
Yeah.
And Country Bears, they were trying to make them, a pop group, and we'd already had like Josie and the Pussycats at that point, and Spice World, and Gem hadn't come out yet at that point, but it's very much in that they're trying to do that, and it's like, okay. I didn't say it was terrible. It's just like compared to Pirates.
Yeah.
Pirates is the better one. I'm sorry, but it's true.
Yeah. Yeah. So she's the same with the Haunted Mansion and the Jungle Cruise, which the Jungle Cruise movie, not bad because they went the same kind of route as Pirates, where they just took like the vibe and went with that and built a story around that. So so they may need to watch out for the Country Bears part of the irony that we talked about the last week about them updating the Country Bears, and then today part of the Magic Kingdom had to close because an actual bear had found its way into the park and was in a tree. So they had to close off that area of the park so that no one would spook it. And of course, all the Disney fans are like, "Oh, it's just auditioning for the new Country Bear to try." Or it's protesting, one of the two, depending on who the person was. But it was just like, of all the things. So that was fun in the Disney fandom today to watch that unfold, and people will be like, "There's a actual bear in the Magic Kingdom." So it was up a tree. I believe the situation has been resolved.
Well, that's good.
But still, that was funny. So
I would make a joke about him going after a picnic basket, but that's the wrong studio.
Yeah. It's also funny that both this movie, Return of the King, came out in 2003, and they both have Orlando Bloom in it. Like I said, he knows where his bread is buttered.
He does indeed.
Get that Lord of the Rings and Disney money. A couple years ago, when I thought the second or third one came out, my middle school went to see a parody play Pirates at our local dinner theater here in Utah, and it was hilarious. That doesn't.
Oh yeah, it was a Pirates of the Great Salt Lake, if I remember correctly. I didn't go to see it, but I remember. Yeah, there's a couple of those around here. There's
That's
Desert
funny.
Star and the Off-Broadway Theater, they're like parody, well, like theater groups. It's community theater, so it's not like, it's all volunteers, but I've been to Off-Broadway Theater and they do some funny crap. But yeah, Desert Star's pretty good too. They're a little more, they actually do like dinner theater and stuff.
Nice.
Yeah, they do these copyright compliant parodies. It's great.
Well, that's a nice thing about parody is the rules are very flexible when it comes to copyright when it's parody.
This is true. This is very true.
This is why Saturday Night Live has been around for almost 50 years. So me and my friend are going on a Disney trip one day, and we're going to Disney Bound as our favorite character. Cool. Also, I kind of wish they did a movie of the Indiana Jones ride, which was going to be great, and it should have been the 5th movie or 4th movie.
Well,
no, because we have Indiana Jones, so we're good. Yeah. So the Indiana Jones ride is great the way it is, and the Indiana Jones movie franchise is what it is, and we're just gonna leave both alone.
let's just not mess with Indy anymore. I think he's been through enough.
Yes.
Right. I'm just saying. Like,
Poor Dr. Jones.
Yeah. Like, I'm going to pretend that he and Marion got married and they lived happily ever after, and that is my headcanon. I'm sticking to it. And yes, that means I have to keep Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but I'm okay with that.
Yep. Let's see. Now going back to Pirates, I heard they were going to do a remake of Pirates, but they stuck with the OG franchise. I wish they put Red, the pirate girl, in the upcoming 6th movie. That was a thought at one point. If you've been on the attraction, we wants the redhead, but she's quite popular. But yeah, she is actually a walk around character, at least at Disneyland. So I'm sure she and Jack have had some encounters.
I'm sure I deserve that. No, that
yeah, that one he did deserve. I also heard they're trying to get Johnny Depp to come back for the upcoming films, but it's probably better without, since he didn't return for the 3rd Fantastic Beasts film. Well, they're 2 different companies, so Warner Brothers can do what they do, and Disney can do what they do. So,
yeah, I think they all have other things they're dealing with currently. So
yeah, it is all a moot point at the moment.
True enough.
About the dinosaur ride in Disney parks, there's an animated movie part of Disney Animated Studios called Dinosaur that came out in 2000. Yes, I remember.
I remember that one too.
Pirates,
great groundbreaking thing, and it just kind of fizzled out and did nothing. I'm just like, oh, right. But yeah.
They can't all be winners, kids.
No, especially when you're Disney in the 2000s, it just wasn't working, guys. Sorry, but we're being honest.
So Pirates was the first PG-13 movie. Not the Black Cauldron. I'm not quite sure she's talking about PG-13 rating. I don't think existed yet when the Black Cauldron came out. So
no,
I think that's kind of a moot point anyway.
PG-13 came about because people were all like,
because of Indiana Jones.
Actually, because Indiana Jones. They're like, there's got to be something between PG and R that still does the job. But Pirates was the first PG-13 movie released under the Disney banner.
As opposed to Touchstone.
Touchstone or Hollywood Pictures. I think Hollywood Pictures.
Yep.
Disney's lesser used, but it was still there. Black Cauldron was the first PG animated.
Mm-mm.
Oh yeah, 2 different things.
Yep. So the only Jerry Bruckheimer films I've seen besides Pirates and National Treasure are the Titans, the CSI franchise, G-Force, Prince of Persia, The Sorcerer's Apprentice, Top Gun 1 and 2. If you girls are going to talk about National Treasure, make sure you talk about the TV series. Did you girls even know there was a TV series in National Treasure? Yes, I know. I have not watched it yet. I can't remember if you talked about it when you... Yeah.
Yeah. The National Treasure TV series, I have heard it charitably described as a fart in the wind. It came, it went, and no one cared.
Yeah.
But National Treasure, excellent films. I like me some crazy Nick Cage stealing the Declaration of Independence.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, I would not mind reviewing those movies.
I just can't remember if you talked about when you girls did D23 in San Diego Comic-Con last year. It's just, oh wait, you girls didn't, because I went back to re-listen to those episodes. Glad she knows what we talked about.
That was a snap of the fingers. So I'm going to listen to that while I write out my comment. Oh wait, yeah.
Yeah.
That always amuses me. Mostly because I do that myself.
Well, glad somebody's keeping track.
Somebody has to keep us in line, because I don't know. Sometimes I say stuff and I forget what I said 2 seconds after I said it.
Yeah.
Not that. Well, okay, maybe not that bad, but bad enough.
Yeah. As she finishes, and she says, also at the Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disneyland, on top of the ride, there's a suite hotel room only for VIP of Disneyland to stay. Yes, that is the Dream Suite, the equivalent of, it's the Disneyland equivalent of the Dream Suite that they have in Cinderella's Castle at the Magic Kingdom. But yeah, it is only for the VVVIPs. Or if you win, Disney will have occasional giveaways where you can win a stay either in the Cinderella Castle Suite or the suite above Pirates. So that is also where Club 33 is located at Disneyland as well. So, which is
really?
Yep.
It's
in New Orleans Square.
Okay, some reason I thought it was like
like
a back door on Main Street, but maybe I guess I was wrong. Okay.
Nope. Club 33 is over in New Orleans Square. So
all right, learn something new every day.
But it is one of those where you kind of have to know where it is to look for the entrance, which the entrance is really getting into an elevator. So but yeah, it's marked, but it's kind of often around in a side area, so you kind of have to go looking for it. So but I've yet to be inside Club 33. I know people who have. So
I was kind of like imagining, like, you have to, it's like some kind of 1920s speakeasy where you have to,
it kind of is.
It kind of is. The little thing at the door open and they say, "Get what's the password?" And
in a way, it kind of is. So, like, yeah, you have to like ring the doorbell, and they have to come and retrieve you and confirm your reservation. You got to make sure that they got to make sure that you followed the dress code.
Yeah.
You're only allowed to take pictures up to a certain point, and then after, you got to put all phones and cameras away and be present in the moment. So
no selfies or TikToks, y'all.
Nope. No, it is very cool that those things are kind of hidden right where all the people are rushing from one place to the other, and you've got a very exclusive hotel suite and a very exclusive restaurant that while you're waiting in line and writing Pirates of the Caribbean, it's above your heads, depending on where you are. So
now you say that, and I'm like picturing the times I've been to Pirates. Like, okay, that makes sense now.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, the Pirates in California, they were able to go below ground because they didn't have to worry about the water table as much. So they were able to build on top.
Yep. So it makes me wonder. So if there are any like super rich elite people who've been to both the Cinderella suite and the
I'm sure there
I
have.
just want to know, like, which is the better one in your opinion, or are they both just bad?
I mean, there's something about the castle, the fact that like most of it is just facade.
Yeah.
And there's not actually a whole lot to do inside of it. Like there's the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique where they do the princess makeovers, and then there's the restaurant, and then that's kind of it. The rest of the castle is just a landmark. It's a prop. So other than the bits that Tinkerbell has to use to get to her spot where she leaps off one of the high balconies during the fireworks. So, but yeah, other than that, so being able to be, although from what I've heard, like, I mean, if you love princesses and like Cinderella and the whole idea of just like being treated like royalty, the suite itself is just opulence turned up to 11. But apparently, like, once you're in there to like sleep for the night, it's kind of weird because it's like you don't really have like a view of the park or anything. You're just kind of like, okay, I guess I'm sleeping here tonight. So
I would imagine, just because of where it's located, like, it's because I mean there are hotels that are at the park, but they're not like in the middle of all the attractions and all this stuff. And I'd be like, I am sleeping in the middle of this big touristy landmark where people are, during the day are just running around, going to all their stuff, and there's shops below me, and I don't know. I guess it would be kind of like sleeping in the Eiffel Tower if there was a room up there or something like that. It's like it's not something you would think of, or as sleeping in the Statue of Liberty, or pick a landmark that's a place is known for, that isn't where you would, isn't like necessarily a hotelish type of thing. I just like I could see it being a lot of fun. In fact, when I was little, I was like, "Ooh, I want to go in the castle," and I was mildly disappointed to find out that you don't actually go in the castle well, at least not the one at Disneyland, because that's where I wanted to go. But
well, you kind of can at Disneyland now, because they do have in the lower area, they have a little walkthrough area where it tells the story of Sleeping Beauty, and there's the dragon, the Maleficent is in there. So
I mean, I guess later they added stuff, but it's not like you can go up there. There's all the hallways, or there's not like shops in there. Like, I was like, this is kind of small. I imagined it being bigger. I guess, but at the same time, it's just kind of it's just interesting to me, like what your perception is from when you're little to then when you're grown up and you see it, you're just kind of like, okay, it's that thing. That's the thing, huh? Yeah. But yeah, it's more a centerpiece than an actual building, I guess. But then again, sleeping above Pirates of the Caribbean, it's like there's a ride beneath me. That's cool. So interesting. The more you learn, the more you know. Pirates are just downstairs.
Yep. I think I'd be more excited about that than being in the castle, because I would just be like, okay, I'm gonna go ride pirates. I'll be right back.
Yeah. Now I'm kind of like, oh man, there was a missed opportunity when they had the Tower of Terror. There should have been like a VIP suite up in there.
Yeah.
Alas.
All right. Well, moving on to also technically from the House of Mouse. This is Touchstone.
Yeah, this is at least another Touchstone
and Buena Vista Pictures. So technically we are we're keeping it in the House of Mouse. But I'm rather excited about this. It's been like I've been in a very musical mindset anyway. Like I've just had like musicals on the brain. So anytime that we can talk about one that I thoroughly enjoy is always a win. And I know this one's got, for some folks, it has a special place in their heart.
Yes.
Because of the time period that it and the sequel were released. So but we are talking about Sister Act and Sister Act 2, Back in the Habit, and the Sister Act Broadway musical. So essentially the Sister Act franchise.
Which is hilarious because so I mentioned the Off-Broadway Theater earlier. They share they actually share a building with the Draper Community Theater, and that's near where I work. My library is really close to their building, and I was driving home one night, and I knew we were gonna, and I'd actually watched the first Sister. We watched the first Sister Act, and I was waiting for gonna go do the second one later, and I drove by their theater, and in the community theater they were advertising they were putting on Sister Act this month, and I was like, there's your serendipity. There you go. I was like, it's a sign. I don't know what the sign is of, but there you go. So it's like, oh man, I was like, I wish I had the time and the money to go see that, because I actually have not seen the stage musical. I have seen the first movie many, 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 many times. This was the first time I'd seen the sequel. But it's a fun movie. It's just it's one of those. It's like, yes, you can tell it was made during a certain time period, but the first one especially is very timeless. I mean, mostly because most of it takes place in a convent. So the setting, yes, there's a lot of the 90s and stuff in when they go to the casino and at the precinct and whatever. But it's like these are nuns doing what nuns do. They are and they're trying to help their community, and obviously the people out there very 90s, and it's that very inner city kind of grunge look that was the hot thing back then. And so there's like, yes, there's a lot of its time, but also a lot of timelessness to it, where it's just a fun and interesting story. And the music slaps, like, honestly.
Oh yeah.
And it's kind of funny.
Because I have a dedicated like musical playlist on Spotify, and it's both Broadway, film, music, and the finale from the first movie, the performance for the Pope. It just, like, every time I listen to it, I just get goosebumps because it just slaps so hard. 20 years later, I'm like, this is so good.
Well, and like, I don't know why I always forget that they're performing for the Pope at the end, because like I've said, I've seen this movie a lot, and I'm like, oh right, the Pope is coming to see their choir, because word had got to the Vatican that there was this choir in this convent in San Francisco. And they were just doing some amazing work, and he wanted to come see him, and I'm just kind of like, oh right, that was a thing, because I just remember the ending, that finale, the song, that it's so great, it's so wonderful. And I think my favorite part about the first movie especially is because you have that opening scene where it has Dolores as a young girl, and she's going to a Catholic school, and she is very much not into it, and she's the 12 apostles, John, Paul, George, and Ringo. Yeah, because I remember the first time I saw this, I was fairly young, and like she starts naming off the apostles. I'm like, I don't remember an apostle named George, and then she says Ringo. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then so definitely she's not into the whole religion sort of thing. And then it flashes forward to too. She's an
But
adult.
yeah,
And
because
she's
the sister is all the sister starts admonishing her like, you're just absolutely hopeless. There, do you know what happens to girls like you? And flash forward, and she's a lounge singer in Reno of all places,
in Reno,
which is
not even Vegas.
Yeah, Reno.
Yeah.
Which funny is that little girl that plays young Dolores plays a crap. Now I'm blanking on Whoopi Goldberg, the character she plays on Star Trek on Next Gen.
Oh, Guinan?
Guinan, because that girl plays young Guinan on Star Trek as well. So she just plays young Whoopi Goldberg in the early 90s, essentially.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah, that's a good gig if you can get it. So
I mean the joke of like, you're never gonna amount, what happens to girls like you. It works on so many levels because yes, she's a lounge singer, but she's in Reno. And if you know anything about, Nevada, the whole state is either Vegas or Reno, and the rest is just, there's nothing out there, or it's all just desert and farmland and all that kind of stuff. And Reno is kind of it's become better. It's better since it's gotten better since then. But Reno is kind of the armpit.
I would say performing in Reno is like the equivalent is if you wanted to try to make it on Broadway, but you ended up in New Jersey instead.
Pretty much. And then if you really sucked, you end up in Wendover, which is a little town that is on the Utah-Nevada border, and like half of it is casinos, but like there's like 3 or 4 casinos nowhere near Vegas, and then the Utah side is like not much. There's a Subway and a high school. So it's like, but they advertise very heavily in Salt Lake City because it's like an hour and a half drive. So it's like, you don't want to go all the way to Vegas. You can get to gamble. You can go out to Wendover. But yeah, Wendover and Reno are kind of mirrors of each other a little bit, except Wendover's a lot smaller. But yeah, Reno is not considered, I've made the big time. Whereas in Vegas, there's those, there's Siegfried and Roy, there's Cirque du Soleil, there's all
that's what, it's where the Rat Pack performed, Sinatra and and all those guys, and so there's a bit more class when it comes to Las Vegas.
Yeah, but Reno is just like so she is not doing, and then you see like the people that she's performing for, and she's doing she's trying to do a good job, singing her heart out, and you can tell she loves it, but it's just her audience is just
it's not even like she's like in a theater or anything. It's a dinky little stage with gambling machines wrapped all the way around it, so people are more concerned about playing video poker,
pretty much,
and they're looking down pushing buttons, and meanwhile Dolores is up there with her backup singers, and she even I like when they're like they're doing their medley of all the songs that we're going to hear churchized later, and by the time she gets to the last one, she's like, you don't care, you're not paying attention, let's get out.
No, let's get out of here. And then her her boyfriend acts like, I gave you this, I gave you put your name in lights and all these things, and you see the marquee and what the group name is, and later after she's in hiding, he's just got another group and they just changed the name ever so slightly. So he's just replaced her with whoever can cozy up to him. But it's just like, your boyfriend is a mob boss in Reno. Like, this is kind of pathetic. Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah.
Overall, which adds, so yes, she's not very religious, and yes, she ends up being a lounge singer in a casino, but she's in Reno, and her mob boss boyfriend is just, it's like, this is nothing. This is
who is so married. Pitiful. Her married mob boyfriend. Right. God love Harvey Keitel.
Right.
Her married mob boyfriend who refuses to leave his wife and says that he can't because he went to church to confess that he was having an affair and was told if he divorced his wife, he would go to hell. Which I
And I'm just
believe
kinda
pretty
like,
much none of what he says about that entire exchange. So,
yeah, I'm just kind of like, and you ain't going to hell for everything else you've
yeah.
done? I'm like, dude.
Like, meanwhile, Dolores has to go into hiding because she watches you shoot someone. So, yeah, real, you know,
Real winner
pillar
there.
society.
Right. And then poor Dolores. And that's probably why that flashback is there. It's like, I really did. It's like, I am regretting my life choices.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, then she runs off. Then she runs to the police, and they've been trying to get Vince on something. And so finally they have a witness, but they have to, get a court date. And so, but they got to hide her before, they find her. And where's the last place they're gonna look for her? In a convent.
In San Francisco.
In San Francisco. And it's not that she's gonna go hide in a convent, because convents throughout history have been a sanctuary for all kinds of people, but they're going to insist that she, pose as a nun, which
she must assimilate.
She must assimilate. She has, and it's
you will be assimilated, Dolores.
Yes, and you're gonna be Sister Mary Clarence, and you're from a very progressive order, and just all these things.
But I mean, you've got the cast. I mean, because when this movie was originally the guy who wrote the script had it written in the late 80s, and they wanted Bette Midler to play the role, and Bette Midler was like, no, nobody wants to see me as a nun. So eventually Whoopi Goldberg signed on, and then the script went a crap ton of rewrites, having various script doctors take a look at it, including Carrie Fisher. Carrie Fisher helped doctor the script. So some of the bits that you find extremely funny probably have Carrie has something to do with Carrie. Probably. It got to the point. Yeah, it got to the point where it no longer resembled the original script. So the guy that wrote the original script decided that he wanted his credit in the form of a pseudonym. He didn't want his actual name on it. They changed it so much. Of course, then the movie became very successful. So, but you've got Whoopi Goldberg, who at this point she was a good sized star at this point in her time. She'd won an Oscar in '90 for Ghost. So she was on the upswing as far as her stardom was concerned. And then you get people like Dame Maggie Smith as the Reverend Mother, who is absolutely is her playing this role. I would probably guess had something to do with her getting the role as Professor McGonagall in Harry Potter.
Oh, probably. That is possible. That and the lady in Secret Garden. I cannot remember her name now, but she played the strict housekeeper there too. But it's just so funny. I'm like, I'm watching this movie, and I've got Whoopi Goldberg, playing foil to Maggie Smith, and I'm just like, this is so much fun. And what I love about this movie the most, and I think this is why it was so successful, is like you've got people who, maybe they're Catholic, or maybe they went to Catholic school, maybe they didn't, or maybe they're religious, or they were religious, so they kind of get the jokes, they get the culture, they get the inside stuff. Then you got people who are currently involved in a church of some kind, and whether it's Catholicism or not. And it's just kind of like, hey, you're not portraying us as, backward, old-fashioned, whatever that sometimes gets portrayed. Like, you're actually saying like, hey, we want these women to go out and, you know, help the community. That's what we're supposed to do. But also it can be very, you know, it's very, you know, there's a lot of things in there that, as far as like religion is concerned, it's kind of like, you know, you want to go out and help and be a part of the community. You also, you know, have your standards that you don't want to compromise those. And, you know, because Reverend Mother talks about, you know, she's protecting the sisters that are in the convent and things, and like,
because
and
the
they're very
neighborhood they're
valid
in
points.
is supposed to be rough,
Yeah,
which
and
at the time actually it wasn't. They had to dress down some of the
well,
shops outside across the street from the
I'm
church
gonna
that they
say
used.
I doubt that the studio would have said, "Oh yeah, go into like the roughest ever neighborhood."
Yeah, it was. This was
Yeah.
an upper middle class neighborhood at the time. I
Yeah,
can't speak for it now because it's San
right.
Francisco, and unfortunately, San Francisco is hit and miss. I
Yeah.
love San Francisco. I've been there several times. The city, you're great. You're such a good representation of the melting pot that is this country. So it's like there's a little bit of everything for everybody, and it's really culturally diverse, which is so much fun to go and explore. You could go to like Chinatown on one day and, you know, little Korea and another, and experience all sorts of things. But yeah, it's the city itself is not
It's not what
in
it
the
used
best
to be.
shape, and a lot it's not the best economically. It is one of the most expensive cities in the country. So
Yeah.
unless you
But
can
it's got
afford
a
it,
lot of problems.
yeah, unless you can afford it, you are not doing well, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So
Well, and it's kind of funny because I'll tell you the story. So I've talked a lot about how I, you know, lived around in Jacksonville, Gainesville for a while. I was actually on my mission for my church. That was back in 2008, 2009. And, you know, when you're a full-time missionary, and it's not the same as being a nun. I'm not equating it, but there are some similarities. And one of those things is like you go everywhere, you talk to everybody, and you try to teach them about religion, about the gospel, you know, bring them to Jesus, basically.
mhm.
And one of the funniest things, and Jacksonville's got a fair number of rough areas and the surrounding communities. And one of the places it was actually one of the last one towards the end of my service. Um, there was a neighborhood that was a little rough around the edges, but they were so much fun to talk to, and they loved talking to us because we were the church girls.
Mhm.
And like we would have good conversations with them. I mean, whether or not, you know, they came to church or whatever is irrelevant, but you know, we had a good opportunity to kind of like help them out, do some service for them and things like that. Whereas, and then there was one time we were we had gone to church one Sunday, and one of the congregation come up to us and like, "Sisters, I saw you coming out of there. Are you supposed to be in there?" We're like, "Well, we're teaching somebody over there. Of course we need to go talk to them." But they were just, I mean, they were the you know, the members were concerned for our safety, which was really sweet of them. But I'm kind of like, you know, if anyone did try to mess with us, I think we would have some some backup on our side, just because,
Mhm.
you know, we'd gone in there with the intention of, hey, you know, we want to love and you know, help, whatever we can do to help. We just want to talk. We want to be friends. And, you know, if there is, and not everybody wants to talk. And I'm not saying I'm like, oh, look at me, I'm the best person ever, and I'm gonna save y'all. Like, no, there's only one being in the universe who can do that, and I want to share his message with you.
Mhm.
Was my stance on that. But it was just so interesting to get to know some people that I would never have talked to otherwise, just because what business would I have had going out there, and that kind of thing, and putting yourself in the position of, hey, these are, my beliefs are, I have something good that I want to share, and it is the love of God and the love of of the Savior and that kind of thing. So it was, so like I'm watching this movie, and these nuns, these women going out and, you know, getting to know the kids, getting to know the community, playing basketball, and you know, they're paint, you know, doing they paint that car, and a bunch of other things, and they're getting the music going in the church, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this so reminds me of all these things that we had done. Like, I mean, we didn't do a choir, but sometimes we have basketball on Saturdays with people and that kind of thing. So I'm just like, oh, it's just one of those things. It's like, the missionaries in our church, like that's the kind of thing that we send these kids out to go do. And I say kids because they go out when they're like 18, 19. I went when I was 23, so I was a little older, but it was, it gave me the warm fuzzies. And it's like, hey, we've all got the same goal. We've all got the same, kindness and goodness in our hearts. And, there's, maybe we differ on points of doctrine, but at the end of the day, we're all serving, the same God, the same loving and caring person. I didn't mean to get religious all up in there, but heck, we're talking about Sister Act and a bunch of nuns who are singing praises to the Most High. So I was like, it got me a little nostalgic this time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid and going to church all the time because I didn't have a choice in the matter, but one of the activities that I did on the regular and was be in the church choir. We had a full adult choir, which my dad was part of for the longest time, but then we had a children's choir as well, and there's just something, even if you take religion out of it, there's something about the power of music that speaks to people and can bring people together, because it's kind of cliche, but I think it's true. His music is kind of the universal language. Even if you don't understand what the lyrics are being said, the music, the instruments and the feeling of it, that non-tangible stuff, can get to you in ways that are kind of hard to kind of articulate. But I mean, when Dolores takes over the choir, much to Sister Mary Lazarus' chagrin, and the ladies of the choir are like, oh, absolutely, please help us, we know we're terrible, which they're actually not. They're just disorganized.
They just need a little direction and a little.
They just need a little direction. They can carry a tune. It's just like they've got like their altos and their sopranos all mixed up, and that's not the way the choir is supposed to be arranged, and they're not listening to each other to make sure that they're staying on beat. And some people are way more enthusiastic than others. I love Kathy and Jimmy in this role.
Oh, I know.
He's just so.
He's like, they want to do their best, but it's just like, hey, how do we do that? How do we harness that talent? Which is, it's kind of the lifeblood of the story of the movie. The situation that Dolores is in is like, oh, I've got to hide out in this convent. Well, so my murdering ex-boyfriend at this point, obviously, doesn't find me, and it takes her a while to warm up to the other nuns in the convent. But after a while, she's like, we worked hard together. Like, when you work on something like that and you see people, but if you have a bit of expertise and you teach somebody, because Dolores is good with music, and you teach somebody something and you've worked hard for something, and you want to see it succeed, and you get that closeness. It's like, it's that being on a team kind of thing. It's like, look at all this that we're doing. And even though she's like not eager to be there at first, by the time that it's time for her to leave, like, these women are her best friends, and they do anything for her, as evidenced by the ending. They fly a helicopter and and guilt the pilot
the pilot to fly them to Reno.
So they can help her. It's just like, oh my gosh, this is so perfect. It's so ridiculous, but I'm like, honestly, I could see something like this happening in real life.
Yeah. Well, and what I love, and also what I love is, because we get that opening sequence, of young Dolores being a, kind of a little shit in Catholic school. And, it's like, oh, what are you going to grow up to be? And we see, she's just kind of just, nothing singer in Reno. And you're like, oh, whatever. But when she gets to the convent and gets involved with the choir, you learn that she's not just a singer looking for stardom. She actually is very smart when it comes to music. Like, she knows, what notes, to get them to learn to sing, harmonizing. She knows what notes to tell the piano player and how to arrange, the different vocalists, sopranos here, altos there. She obviously
teaching them all the technique.
Yeah, she obviously
posture.
she teaches that. I mean, their performances, she obviously does like the music arrangement. So it's not that she's just a singer, she's actually a very talented musician.
Yes.
But I think that's maybe something that's slightly overlooked, and then she takes that even further in the sequel.
Yes, that is true. But yeah, it's just great because it's kind of like, she was looking for a place and she found it in. I mean, we've heard this trope before. You find it in the place you least expect or the least likely because of whatever situation. But it's just a great movie. It's like there's two schools of thought that seem to be so opposite each other. And there's actually some common ground there that they all become friends. And even in the sequel, when they're serving lunch with all the other teachers, and Dolores is like, oh gosh, I forgot about the food.
Yeah.
So she doesn't go all the way back to her attitude from the first movie, but there's still some things she's like, no, I can't do this.
Yeah.
Like, this is not gonna.
Although, the guy, the cook, he knows how to cook. He just only
knows one recipe.
He only knows a certain, style of cooking, which, I love German food. I love myself a bratwurst and some sauerkraut and some spätzle as much as the next person. I have German roots. Liverwurst, not so much,
meal.
but it is very rich and heavy food, and it's not something you want to eat 3 square meals a day.
Yeah. In fact, I think if this movie had wanted, if the second, we kind of slid into the sequel a little bit. If the sequel wanted to take a different tack, it would have been somebody who's hiding out, an accomplished chef who needs to hide out in a Catholic school and teach the cook how to what to do, how to it would have been Ratatouille, but with nuns and monks.
Yeah. That being said, having someone who knows his way, or a way around a wiener, comes in handy when you're needing to do a fundraiser, and selling hot dogs to the community is a good way to do that. So.
Yes, that is true too. And,
so at least
hopefully they're
good
hot dogs.
I'm sure they were halfway decent.
And it was for a good cause. I mean, who doesn't want to support the school choir going to a competition? Like, come on.
Yeah. So
anyway, so Sister Act, first one, lots of fun, great music. I'm always reminded of the idea that some Christian music, you can't tell, is it a love song or a song of praise. And sometimes it can be both, as is demonstrated in that movie.
Yeah. Well, obviously not all of the nuns. Some of them especially the older ones, if they got their calling early in life, they've probably lived a very sequestered life. It sounds like, Mary Lazarus, she came from a convent where you didn't wear shoes and didn't have electricity. And, like Amish nuns almost.
Yeah.
Survivalist nuns. That's kind of what it sounds like. But
Yeah.
as we learn when Sister Mary Robert and Sister and Mary Patrick sneak off, when Dolores sneaks out, and Kathy to Jimmy's like, oh, just what, a jukebox, just one song, and she's like, I love this song, and it's not a song I know, but it's obviously a pop song, so she is at least some of them are aware of popular music,
right?
But that does not mean that you can't take something that is a popular song and change the style of it and turn it into something that's still appropriate, as much as the Reverend Mother complains after that first performance. She's like, boogie woogie in the pews. I was like, oh, okay, Reverend Mother, showing your age, boogie woogie. But the thing is
you figure the nuns, they were young once, and you don't join the sisterhood until you're a little older, and so you probably have had some experience with things like that, so it's okay.
Yeah. But the fact that their first performance with Dolores leading them is so good that it literally, probably the fact that they had, their roof was desperately needing repairs probably helped with the sound getting out into the street to get the people to come in. But the fact that it sounded so interesting, even though they were singing a traditional hymn, they're singing Latin in that song. But you got Sister Mary Lazarus essentially rapping in Latin, kind of. But it sounds so interesting and good that it's literally bringing people in from the streets.
Yeah.
You see the Monsignor, he's just like, gesturing like, no, come on in. You're welcome.
Come on in. Yeah, and that's what they've been trying to do. It's not a, you stay out because maybe you're not dressed right, or you don't have what, insert the cliche here of, I'm not welcome in church, and it's kind of like, no, you very much are. Like, come in here. And sometimes, and I feel like churches have gotten better at this, but there are some times where it's like, we kind of try a little too hard, and we come off as, how do you do, fellow kids? But then there are people, and I think it's a talent to get that sort of church message, the gospel message across in a way that people will listen and respond to. And I think people are really good. There's certain people who are really good at that, and then there are people who are really bad at it. And their heart's in the right place. Bless them for trying, but it's kind of like, no, brother, no sister. Let's just we'll let these guys, like, let's focus on your talent here, and they've got a talent for this. And it's sort of I feel like in this movie, in this scenario, it's like, this shows Dolores. This is her talent, is like, she can get to people, she understands people, and she really understands like what it is that they respond to, and putting that in a context of, well, this is something that's going to help you, and whether, anyway, you still get to decide if you're going to participate, but this is what we're trying to tell you, and and try not to come off as preachy, and I really admire people like that, who can take a message that maybe isn't popular, maybe isn't something you want to hear, but frame it in a way that's like, look, this is something important, and this is something that can help you if you let it. And maybe you are looking for something, I don't know, but come and see if this is something that you're that is going to help you. And maybe some of the things you've heard about it maybe aren't quite as accurate as maybe you think. Maybe we're not stodgy and boring and stuffy and just have really, nuns who can't sing. Maybe we can have a little fun. You're supposed to be joyful. And that's one of the things I love about this movie is like they're being joyful and and communicating that to the people that they're there to serve. And so yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
it gets a lot of fun. And Dolores, she has her moment and just oh, I love it. It's great. But she's still herself. Like she's still kind of got that edge to her that doesn't go away completely.
Yeah. I mean, me personally, I always enjoyed church service when we did more contemporary type music, because it's like you can only sing how great thou art so many times.
I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah,
that's one of the hymns that just exhausts me.
Yes, so it's like anytime that we got the opportunity to sing something a bit more contemporary instead of just your usual hymn, I was down. It's hard enough dragging your butt out of bed on a Sunday morning for church as it is, and then you're just like Eddie Izzard has a bit in one of their stand-up specials about people and specifically talk about the Church of England, but really you can apply it to almost any church.
I'm sure.
In a first world country where people are just like, hey, it's just like it's so dreary,
Yeah, I mean, I'll admit it. I've been one of those. It's just kind of like, and the congregation is singing, and there's that one who's just really trying so hard. It's like, oh, but you really shouldn't, friend. It's like I know you wanna participate, you wanna do this, but maybe a little.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it is, and I honestly, although I do think, I mean, it used to be that Christian music was kind of like, oh gosh, and some of it still is, but I think it's improved a lot. And that I know I've got some songs on my playlist that are gospel songs, but I'm like, dang, this one really bops. It's like it's great. And so but and then it conveys the message that it's trying to send, and it's just it feels good. It's a good time. So like I said, if there's those people that can just that can just do it really well, reach people who maybe they just need to hear it a different way.
And that's what happens, is Dolores gets this ragtag group of nuns to come together and show that they've got a little something, and it ends up that the Pope is like, I'm going to visit this church and I want them to perform for me, and then it's like, okay,
and then Reverend Mother's
kind of a big deal,
and everyone's like, no, because this is what's working. Let's do what's working.
Yeah,
yeah, it's great. It's
the sequel, which is not bad. It's its own thing. Not.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I said, this is the first time I've watched it, in preparation for talking about it on the podcast. As many times I've seen the first one, but the second one, it definitely has more of that product of its time sort of thing to it, because there were a lot of movies that were like about, this downtrodden group of students who they just need a little inspiration, and we're gonna follow our dreams, and like, you have the one girl, Rita, played by Lauryn Hill. Her mom was like, no, you can't sing ever, and this is like that's what destroys
which
your
is
father.
Which is really funny after watching this the second one again after a while, and when Rita and her mom, have the argument when she finds out that Rita's been participating in the school choir, which, okay, obviously they needed it for plot purposes. The issue between Rita and her mom, and Rita going behind her mom's back and forging her signature on the permission slip so that she can go to the choir competition. But you know what? If Rita and or Dolores, when she shows up at Rita's house, had told her mom that the choir participation in the choir is part of her class and therefore part of her grade,
yes,
I don't think her mom would have argued as much.
I know. Well, and it's kind of like, well, it's so funny. Like, she's like, you got to go study. You got to study. And I'm kind of like, well, this is part of the class. And also, if you really wanted to go to college, colleges look at extracurricular activities. So it kind of reminded me of, this was a Disney Channel movie years ago called The Luck of the Irish. I don't know if anyone remembers that one. Where the girl, so that there's the boy's the main character, but he's got this girl that's his friend and his classmate, and like her parents won't let her go out for the basketball team because she needs to study and get good grades and whatever. Well, then at the end, the boy's grandfather, who's like this rich entrepreneur, because it Irish leprechaun luck shenanigans, or that's what the movie's about.
Because Disney.
Because Disney. But like the grandpa, the boy's grandpa comes up to the girl's parents because they're like, "Where have you been?" Because she's been on the big adventure with everybody, and he comes up and is like, "Oh, she's been interviewing for our our company scholarship. She's got a bright future, except there's one thing that might keep her from getting the scholarship. She needs to be more well-rounded. Could you play a sport?" And then her dad says, "Oh yeah, she's gonna play basketball." I don't know. So I'm kind of like, so I was thinking about that. I'm just kind of like, look, if you want your daughter to go to college, that is, and this was early '90s. This was a huge thing, like college. That's what they pushed, and they were like, I'm like, but colleges want to see you have done other things other than just study. Yes, get the good grades. Yes, study. Yes, do well in school. But also do things like sports or clubs or volunteering and things like that. It's like choir, that's perfect. I'm like, music scholarship. I mean, obviously Rita's, they live in an area which is not very affluent, and a lot of blue collar, single parent working tons of jobs trying to make ends meet. It's like, if getting a scholarship of any kind would go a long way. And I'm like, I think your daughter could get in on a music scholarship somewhere, so it's like, maybe you should, as good as she is, encourage her in this, because that's help her out for sure. And it and maybe she makes a career out of it, maybe she doesn't, but holy crap, like, I mean, I had a roommate who was she was on, what did she do, she was on the track and field team. She was like discus throwing, shot put, and all that stuff. And like, it wasn't like she was like gonna go to the Olympics or anything like that, but she was in on a scholarship and she had her other studies that she was. And it's like, that was a means to an end of doing that. So it's kind of like, so yeah, I mean, obviously this is for drama, for plot reasons, for all this other stuff. But I'm just kind of like, you're really kind of being unreasonable about this, Mom.
Yeah,
like, I'm sorry, but this is
like Dolores shows up at her house and she's like, she's like, I thought you could talk her back into it. And her mom's just like, and I'm like, tell her it's for her grade. And then her mom will be like, yes, because I mean, that's exactly what Dolores did. Is this class, no, it never really had a proper class. So anybody who took music essentially was guaranteed an A.
And they just,
and now Dolores comes in, she's like, you're gonna have to actually work for your grade, and by that, we're gonna turn this class into a choir. It's like, therefore, being in the choir is
part of your grade.
Part of her grade.
Yeah,
but then we wouldn't have the plot. So
yeah, I know. It's like, it's all for drama and stuff, and there's always that. My parent doesn't understand me, because when you're dealing with teenagers and drama, you gotta have that. The adults in my life, we don't get it, and we don't want to talk, and and da whatever.
We don't get a whole lot of backstory, but her dad wanted to be a musician and then he died, and I was like, wait a minute, this is the plot of Coco.
Yes, exactly.
Without the supernatural bits to it.
Right. Yeah.
So
and so so it's kind of like, it's just kind of interesting, like looking, and there were a fair number of these movies back in the day, like whether it was a theatrical or your after school special made for TV movie.
Oh yeah, the ragtag group of high school students who need an adult to come in and whip them into shape, and they find some common ground. In this case, it's music, and like you have like the I don't know all the names of the movies. Like there was the one crap, that what's his face from Battlestar Galactica. He was also on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Edward James Olmos. He did a film like that, and then there's the one with Michelle Pfeiffer, the Coolio's Gangster's Paradise comes from. You go, but a lot of those, obviously Edward James Olmos is different because he is Hispanic, but a lot of those made for TV movies and was a Hispanic class or African American, usually some sort of minorities, and then the teacher that comes in and saves the day is white. So at least they diverted from the white savior trope because it's Whoopi Goldberg. You have an African American come in and be, the reasonable adult.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know. Mr. Holland's Opus is kind of similar in that I don't know. There's some beats to it, but you see this a lot in sports movies. Remember the Titans is it has the same kind of feel to it, although that one was based on true events, more or less. Which is my favorite movies, just because
it's a very, very common plot, especially in the 80s and 90s of
very much so.
That was almost kind of the pseudo plot of Boy Meets World. Mr. Feeney,
Mr. Feeney comes in and is like, oh, you teenagers that are trying to figure life out, you think you know everything, that you really don't, but you're gonna push back against authority. But then the authority figure actually turns out to be okay, and we don't, we love him for what he does, or she or whoever. But that was a very 90s thing, and so I feel like this movie, after the success of the first one, the sequel was going to happen. It was just like, well, what are how do we
and it didn't take long. The sequel was boom the following year,
pretty much, and it kind of shows that they were like, oh, we better cobble something together. And it was like, okay, but why is Dolores, being Sister Mary Clarence again? Because, wouldn't they just hey, we need a teacher when we know someone who would maybe be willing to do this, and the tagline, or not the tagline, the subtitle on this is Back in the Habit. So obviously she's got to use as a nun. It's like, well, why is she that? Because in the first movie it was for her own safety, and that added something to the story of, you better stay and do this even though you hate it, and even though you want to be anywhere else but here. But in this movie, it's kind of like she's doing them a favor, but they can't let the principal know, or the what was the guy, Mr. Chris?
Oh, he was just like the
I don't know, the superintendent or something.
Like the equivalent of the superintendent, or
it was kind of a bureaucratic douchebag.
Yeah,
I don't know. But well, we can't let her know that we have someone who isn't a nun teaching here. I'm like, well, I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I've never attended a Catholic school, so I don't know the ins and outs. But there is a Catholic school in the town where I work, and we, as a library, we were supposed to reach out to all the schools in the area and say, hey, these are the things we have, and a lot of the kids come to the library. And this past summer, we had a girl who had a summer job at the library, because it was a teen. We call it the teen internship, but it's really a summer job. They get paid. It's all good. Anyway, her mom was what was she? She wasn't a teacher, but she was something at the school, like a school, the media, basically a school librarian. And I'm like, I don't think she was a nun. Obviously, she had a daughter. but I was like, I don't like, and maybe the rules are different for this school. I don't know, but I'm just kind of like, would it be okay to hire somebody who isn't necessarily, or like, I don't, like, I have no idea.
I would imagine. I would imagine that most places, I can't speak for Catholic schools, that it's not so much that she's not an actual nun. The fact that she's not an actual licensed teacher could be an issue.
Okay, yeah, that could be an issue. But I'm just saying, I'm just kind of like, okay, you're bringing in like an expert, like a guest.
Yeah,
really
like an adjunct professor, where you just kind of bring them in because they're specialists in something, in a topic.
Specialize in something, and she's already done it with their choir at the convent. So it's like, well, she whipped a bunch of misfit nuns into shape. Why can't she whip a bunch of misfit teenagers into shape? And and it showed in the first movie. She did have a connection with kids in the area. So it was like, I mean, I can see why they would want to bring her in, as the plot demands, but it's like, I don't know that they really needed her to pose as a nun so much, just because, I mean, obviously, she'd gotten record deals, and she was a pretty big time singer by this point, and she actually was headlining in Vegas. Which I love that line. She's like, I am not, nor have I ever been a showgirl. I am a headliner. Yeah. Which I love that. I love that bit. It's like, yes, there's a difference. But it's and maybe there is that element of, oh, you performed in Vegas, oh no, that might not be good for public relations. But at the same time, I'm just kind of like,
considering Mr. Crisp like has no problem with the school getting closed down so he can retire early, and it sounds like almost maybe like he also may have some financial interest in the school closing down too.
He had a mention of like, oh, this land, we can tear it down and build something else. Like that was mentioned briefly in passing, and I'm like, you douchebag. But I mean, bureaucrats, what are you gonna do? But so I'm like, I like the premise. I like the premise of her coming in and the nuns being like, hey, we need some help with these kids, and you have a history of doing this. You did it with us. You did it with our old.
And Dolores went to school there in the flashback we see in the first movie. It's that
right.
school.
That is true. It is that school, and that's right. She did talk about that, and I'm like, the only thing I don't 100% buy, and that is the only reason that this sequel even exists, is like, I don't think that she really needed to pose as a nun to do this job. But that's my only real quibble with the movie. Everything else I think is great, and like you see the kids kind of at first they're playing pranks on her, they're not taking her seriously, and then she has to figure out, how do I respond? How do I talk to them? How do I get them to respond? How do I, get them to understand? She sets expectations, she sets rules, and it's not that these kids chafe under rules. It's like they don't. It's like they don't feel like anybody has any expectations of them. Then they have no reason to do anything.
Or they have other priorities. Again, we don't get a whole lot of backstory for these kids.
We really
but like
don't.
There's the one kid we see that works at like a corner bodega, and like he's working when he's not in class.
Yeah.
So it's like, when he's not in class and doing homework, he's working trying to make money for his family, because everybody else in his family never graduated high school. So he's trying to break the cycle of lack of education in his family. And
but other than Rita, it was Rita, it's like all these other kids, all these other teenagers, like they're just kind of tropes. It's like, oh, well, we need a kid that that works nights and goes to school. We need a kid who's basically a clone of Malcolm X. We need a kid who we need the mean girls, or someone who's like going to be all catty and whatever, and we need the one who's like, and so it's kind of like, I kind of wish we would have gotten more with the kids, because I feel like that's what the story is here. I kind of feel like this movie, it was one thing, like somebody had an idea, and someone was like, oh, let's take this script and make it Sister Act 2, and that wasn't the intent. The intent originally. I mean, it still ends up being fine. I don't dislike it, but there's some parts of it that I'm just kind of like, this doesn't really mesh well with what was in the first one.
It was not nearly as successful as the first one.
No.
But with time, it's developed a cult following.
Yeah,
which is to be expected of people of our generation. We
Yes,
like
that
to
is
do
true.
that.
We're like, hey, all these things
movies.
we watched as kids, now like we have jobs and money and we can buy them, rent them, whatever, watch them whenever we want. And, it's sort of our guilty pleasure, or not even really a guilty pleasure. So yeah, I'm like, I don't dislike the sequel. I do like that. They go to the competition and you see some of the other schools, the other choirs. And I think if this had been a different kind of movie, one of those choirs that were like really really good, like that one that they said like, oh, they've won several years in a row, like there would be somebody there who'd come over and like snipe at this school and at the kids that we're following, like, ooh, just be really rude to them, really really catty, and there would be a little bit of rivalry there, but there wasn't, which I actually was okay with, because even though when they announced at the end, they're like, that school got second place, and yeah, you could tell they were a little disappointed because they had won and they wanted to win again, but they weren't little shits about it, and they weren't like protesting the judges or anything else like that, and they were actually gracious in losing to St. Francis. Yeah, that's so it wasn't like, the competition wasn't, ooh, we're all at each other's throats. It's, we want to go compete and do our best. And if we do, and obviously then they end up with like the best choreography of all of them. Fancy that. But yeah, it's a solid movie, and I like that you see the kids just kind of like come into their own. They're like, hey, this is our choir. We're gonna own it. We're gonna put some have some pride in what we're doing, and just do our best, and just how hard they worked for it.
Yeah.
And once
again, in the process of doing her thing, Dolores has endeared herself to some of the other staff, like obviously the nuns, the nuns we recognize, they already knew her. They're the same ones that she whipped up into shape in the first movie, but now you've got some of the other staff and faculty, all the friars, or she endears them to them. So when it's like because they all take off to the competition in Hollywood, and then Mr. Crisp, who could not even get Dolores's nun name correct the entire film, because he just can't be bothered to learn people's names. That's kind of much of a jackass he is.
Yeah, he's like, well, the school's closing anyway, so what?
Yeah, exactly. So he's like, not gonna be bothered. But he finally puts the pieces together, like, oh, she's a pop artist, from Las Vegas. So they all take off after, and in the hustle bustle of the competition, the three friars end up turning against Mr. Crisp and lock him in a closet with a giant piece of frozen salami. And I was just like, between the first movie and this one, it seems that those of the Catholic faith in these types of movies have all decided that they need to take a page from the nuns in The Sound of Music, the ones that take the car parts out of the Nazis' vehicle. This is the equivalent. Locking Mr. Crisp in a closet.
Yep. Although like, the school, what are they, the school council or whoever it is that makes decisions over the school, I love that they show up and they see the competition and they're like, oh, we haven't won in years, but now we've won again. And then Dolores says, oh, this was all Mr. Crisp's idea. So when he finally comes out and he's like trying to enact his diabolical scheme, the school board, the school council, whatever they are, they're like, oh, and we thought you wanted to retire early. You were just being modest, or whatever. And he can't go against it because these kids just won this competition, and it's making their school look good again. And it's he's like, oh, what do I do now? And
you made your bed,
Dolores.
now you gotta lie in it.
There you go. But really, I'm like, I think he does just need to retire and let somebody else, run the place.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll find some, poor rundown parish that needs as much attention as this one has gotten.
Yeah.
So that being said, they, like you're wont to do, they've turned it into a musical, a stage musical, that had its regional premiere in Pasadena in 2006. It opened on the West End in 2009. And it's had several runs since 2006, the last one being a 2022 London revival. It's the plot of the first movie. It changes a little bit depending on whether you're watching the UK version or the American version, because they're gonna adjust things for the culture and stuff,
right?
Because references are not going to be necessarily the same across the pond. However, it is all original music. It's not a jukebox musical. They didn't take any of the music that is in either film and reused it in a way to go into the stage show. It is all original music. So and I don't know what the idea behind that was. It's probably easier to write just all new music instead of trying to get the rights to some of the songs. Or whatever. But yeah, it did pretty well in all of its runs. When it was in the original West End production, at one point Whoopi Goldberg was in the cast playing the role of Mother Superior.
Oh,
so
actually, see that's actually very fitting. I feel it.
And since then it's had several performances. Whoopi did a short run back as Dolores in 2020. Or at least she was supposed to, but then it got delayed because of the pandemic. So then they ended up hiring someone else. But I guess it's still doing a thing, like you said, Chrissy. You were having a local production of it, so
yeah.
That's
it's
a thing that you could potentially see. So
yeah. So, I think the last day at the little theater I saw, I think the last day is on the 25th, which is next Monday. If I remember reading the marquee right, but I'm like, I don't know I don't know that I'd make it out there because of work. Plus, we have Panics this weekend. But yeah, the movie's great.
It apparently, with the original West End production, they decided to do a charity run to promote the show and raise money for charity. And but it was it's the sister act Nuns Run.
Nuns Run.
nuns run. So I guess
okay, like a
I guess
5K?
you dress up as a nun and you run for charity. You run in the streets for charity. So
I was thinking like like a theater play has its run. I was like,
yeah,
huh?
no,
Oh, okay, yeah, the penny
yeah,
drops.
yeah. But they at least in the UK they raise money for Bernardo's, which is a British charity for children. It's a children's charity. So
Okay.
that's kind of cool. So it's a 4-mile run. The first one, they had 1,000 people dressed up as nuns run the streets of London, and they raised £30,000.
Nice.
So there you go.
There you go. Like, would they accept that scaled down version of the nun's habit that Sister Mary Robert wears?
Yeah, maybe.
Because I'm like, I don't know if I could do the whole kit and caboodle there, but
Yeah,
maybe
I did dress as a nun for Halloween that year when Sister Act came out, or like the year after. So the Halloween version not as tight fitting as the actual habit that they have to wear in the movie. So
yeah,
slightly more comfortable, although mine was all made out of polyester, so it doesn't breathe. But yeah, I especially love the first movie, but I like both of them. I think they're so much fun. And I know Whoopi has gone back and forth about whether a third one should be made.
I'd say leave it as it is.
If they could find a good enough story, I think she would be up to it. Her biggest thing is that so many of the nuns, who we actually don't even learn their names, unfortunately, but so many of the the peripheral nuns were of the older age already, 20 something years ago. So most of them have passed on. We really only have Maggie Smith, Kathy Najimy, and the gal that plays Sister Mary Robert left. Almost everyone else has passed on. So it's like, what would be the point? Not that you couldn't get some of the cast from the stage production to step in, because they did do a nice little anniversary performance with some of the stage cast on The View a couple years ago. So and had Whoopi, they did I Will Follow Him. So that was pretty fun. So, but yeah, it was one of those things where it's like it was just a collection of characters that even if you didn't know their names, although if you look up some of those ladies, some of those ladies were stars in their prime.
Oh yeah,
as far as acting was concerned. So it's good that they were able to get work at their age. So, I guess of course, Maggie Smith is getting up there in age as well. So but I don't think there necessarily needs to be a third one, but the two we have are fun. And of course we have the musical itself. I've listened to some of the songs from the stage production. It's not bad. Yeah. It's a little weird because you kind of expecting to hear, Heat Wave or something, but it's not bad. So it's actually pretty cool. So, keep your eyes peeled for local productions of Sister Act, the musical, in your area.
Yep. So check that out. Look for look for stage productions and just go watch it. You want a feel good movie with some bopping show tunes, or just music in general. It's great. So anything else you guys want to chime in about on this topic? We good?
I think we're good.
Okay. Well, Okay. Well, if any of our listeners wanna add their 2 cents to the pile, as it were, about Sister
Q
Act.
Shalane's email coming in our inbox
Oh, I'm
any
sure. Have
moment.
you? She's probably seen the stage musical performed somewhere. If I know her. Yeah. So just write us in some feedback. Give us your thoughts on Sister Act, the movies, the stage play, the music, whatever tickles your fancy. Our email address is fiveishfangirls@gmail.com. You can also visit our website, which is thefiveishfangirls.com. And you can also find links to our social media, Facebook and YouTube and Instagram. We'll read out comments as feedback if you feel
And make sure
anything.
you're following all the social
Yes.
medias, because both Chrissy and I will be very busy this weekend.
This is true.
Our
This is true.
respective conventions. So
This is true. I'll be at FanX. Although, well, okay. I did ToshoCon this past weekend. I can't remember if I mentioned that on the record or not. But I was running that one, and that was at the library's teen anime convention. So there weren't a lot of pictures taken because it was
well,
crazy.
you don't run FanX, so
No, I do not. Thank goodness.
Although you will have 2 small children in tow, so
well, on Saturday we will. They're gonna stay home the other days. But they're gonna go on Saturday because by then we'll be like, I think we'll be done, and we'll just go to KidCon, and because they want to go. And like I said, Lottie, I think I've mentioned this before, Lottie has been seeing the billboards and like, there's FanX, when can we go? I'm like, soon, we're going. But they can manage a day, and that's about it. And, they have KidCon. Anyway, so yes, I will be posting as much as I possibly can. I will probably, some of it might actually be after the fact, just because I'm like snapping pictures and everything, and then I get it up later. So there's that. So anyway, yes, follow the social medias for convention goodies this weekend. And also, leave comments. You can download our podcast from all the usual places where you find podcasts. So look for that. And if you feel so inclined and are able to, if you would consider supporting us on Patreon or buying some merch from our merch shop, those are also linked on our website. And that helps us out immensely if you can. And as always, we thank you for your support, for listening, for sending feedback, for anything. Just being our audience, being our people. That we're tickled that you're there and listening and enjoying our waffling about all our random things and other stuff. So
all the things.
Thank you for being our fans. How's that?
And if you aren't signed up for our newsletter, then you probably haven't seen the announcement. Which, first of all, you should sign up for our newsletter. It's on the website. But we now have a Discord. I mean, we had a Discord, we just weren't really doing anything with it. But now I actually bothered to go in and create some like different channels, and that is actually where the gold standard Discord is going to be living as well. So if you want to talk about either fandom related stuff and or cinema related stuff, you can go over to our Discord, just message us for the link and we will get that to you so you can come join in the fun. Which, I'm on other Discords, so I have a vague idea of how it works. I'm not entirely sure what it takes to actually run one, so just bear with us as we figure out something.
We're flying by the seat of our pants.
All the tips and tricks on how to make Discord work smoothly for everybody involved. So
you can
I feel like an old person. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I feel like
I don't know what the kids are into these days, but I hear this is where all the cool kids hang out. So I guess we're gonna be there too.
Yeah, like I said, I was doing the anime the ToshoCon with all the teams, and one of the things I was running was the Pokemon Go raid. So because there's a really big park by where the con was being held. So every once in a while, I'd get on the intercom and say, "Hey, there's a raid. Come meet us. We'll go do it." And so I'd end up talking about Pokemon with the kids, of course. And it came up that I'm like, oh yeah, Pokemon's always been a big thing. Like I remember when it was brand new, and they all looked at me like, holy cow, really? I'm like, oh.
How old are you?
How old are you? I'm like, oh, I honestly, if we're being completely truthful here, I would probably be old enough to be your mom. Maybe, depending on how old you are and how the math works.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of like, oh geez, that's right. Pokemon has been around for a really, really, really long time by now.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
We'll have to give Pokemon its
oh gosh
due at some point as well.
How in the world would we squeeze that into one episode?
Right? I don't know. We'll figure it out.
I don't know. Yeah, for sure.
In the meantime, you want to talk Pokemon? Join our Discord. Hit us up for the link.
There we go. There you go. I will try to hop on Discord. I've tried Discord. I am a complete dunce when it comes to Discord, and
yeah.
But maybe I'll give it another whirl.
I will say it's nice to be able to have like separate threads for topics, but then you can also see immediately if somebody's posted on it, unlike with our Facebook chats, where you have to go to the chat and see if anybody said anything. You have to like bounce around the chats. This you could just look at the Discord and be like, okay, somebody's posted in this one. Let me go see what they said. So, so it's got some benefits. So,
yeah. Maybe I'll give it another whirl and see how it goes.
Come join the cool kids.
Yes, come join us. We have we might have cookies.
Yeah.
Well,
we have fun here.
We'll make some fun memes. How's that?
Yeah.
Memes are great. Anyway, well,
until
hallelujah and
until then, we shall sign off for this week.
This is the Photo. Oh. This is the Photo saying goodnight.
This is Chrissy saying goodnight from Salt Lake City.
I know Brittany was having a little bit of internet issues there for a bit, so that's okay. And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana, and I will leave you with this. 2 simple words. Bless you. Thank you for listening to the Fiveish Fangirls. Please visit thefivishfangirls.com for details on how to further support the show, along with information on our nonprofit, Fangirls Give Back. We love our Fiveish fam and appreciate all of your feedback, shares, and encouragement. Remember to keep letting your geek flag fly.